I think those of you who are watching online, which is most everyone, there's an extra picture on the altar that isn't usually there, which is Rajyasi Janakananda. I presume this is an anniversary related to his life, but I have to confess I can't remember. Rajyasi was an American businessman, a self-made millionaire who was born in very simple circumstances, and by his own diligence, intelligence, and divine destiny, rose to be an extremely wealthy man who met Master, was healed by Master almost immediately of a long-standing nervous condition he had, and became utterly dedicated as a disciple. In the way of divine play, his wife, who had become mentally unbalanced about a year after they were married because of an illness, had a vehement and intense fear and dislike of Master. And so Rajyasi was always having to keep his involvement with Master a secret from her, which lent all sorts of complications. So he never lived at the ashram. He lived until the very end. And he lived in St. Louis, Missouri, I believe is where he was. Kansas City, I'm not sure, but excuse me, I'm a snobby Californian. But that's in one of those places, you know, in the middle. But Master gave him the spiritual name of Rajyasi Janakananda, which is the name of an ancient sage who was both a king and a saint, so had both worldly and spiritual wealth. But he often referred to him simply as Saint Lin, because his name was James J. Lin. In Autobiography of a Yogi, when you look at it, his identity is never clearly indicated, and that was because of the antipathy of his wife. Isn't it just like, doesn't it never just come out altogether the way you want it to come out? It's just amazing. So this man was Master's most advanced male disciple, and when Master died in 1952, he passed the mantle of his spiritual power onto Rajyasi. Rajyasi took his position as leader of Self-Realization Fellowship, and Master called him his spiritual successor. As it happened again in the interesting ways that life works, within a year or two, Rajyasi developed a brain tumor. And so within just a few years of Yogananda's passing, Rajyasi also passed. And then the mantle fell to Dayamata, who remained the leader of SRF for 50 years or more after that. So today we have his picture up on the altar. As I said, I presume for a reason, and it doesn't really matter. The reason is it gives me a way to start talking to you this morning, and I'm very glad of it. You look at a reality like, here is Paramahansa Yogananda. He's an avatar. He's an avatar for Dwapara Yuga. Behind him are 4 other avatars moving this powerful energy. Rajyasi, also with his wealth, I have to add, it was in the divine plan that he should become wealthy because he gave a great deal of his money, not all of it because of the family, but a great deal of money to Master, and helped Master build the work in India, build the work in America, and just take care of many, many things because Rajyasi had that resource that he, as I said, he even earned himself, put out all this energy. And yet woven into the story of Rajyasi is all this confusion with the wife, and the antipathy that was felt there, and the nervous condition that he had before he met Master, and the brain tumor which comes after. Like, if I were writing the script, I would make it easier. I think all of us would make it easier, wouldn't we? Master said to Rajyasi, you were given a wife like that to teach you patience. Like, who would ever want to hear that, you know, from your guru? And on another occasion in correspondence between Rajyasi and Master, there's a line, it's somewhere in there, where Rajyasi is asking, you're my guru, you healed me. Why can't you heal my wife? I mean, the letter wasn't written like that, but when you read the little bit that is in there, you think, wow, that would be a natural question, wouldn't it? Here he is, all of these things are there, he knows Master has infinite power, but Master's answer is the powerful point. Divine Mother, his wife's name was Frida, by the way. Divine Mother knows what she wants from Frida. So there's this woman who had all the karma to become the wife of this self-realized being, to be this far away from Paramhansa Yogananda, but to steadfastly, for her own reasons, turn her back on it, and Master himself couldn't interfere. The power was there, at least in principle, but he couldn't interfere because Divine Mother knows what she wants of Frida, and Frida was not giving it to Divine Mother, and therefore Master couldn't interfere. There's a wonderful story in the Bible, one of the wonderful stories in the Bible, which appears somewhere in our cycle of readings every year, where Jesus, who by that point in his incarnation was renowned for all the miracles that he could do and all the healings that he could do. And at that point in the Bible, they're telling the story of how whenever he would go anywhere, people would crowd around. And there's one story where he's in Peter's home, and the people who are unwell are all coming in, and there's a sick person who can't get through the crowd. So they carry him in his cot up onto the roof. They tear a part of the roof and they lower him down because that's the only way they can get to where Jesus is. I mean, that's what the energy was like. You can imagine the frenzy. And so in this period of time, Jesus is walking down the street and everybody is crowding around him, and he suddenly stops and says, "Someone touched me." That's what he says. And the disciples, who of course love and revere the Master, but they live with him every day, and even in the Bible, they don't quite hear the tone of voice, but you can tell, "Master, what do you mean somebody touched you? Everybody touched you. You're crowded around. This is incomprehensible." And then Jesus says again, "Somebody touched me." Then he explains, "I felt power go out from me," which means that everybody else was just touching him. But all of a sudden, somebody touched the truth of who he is. And as soon as that connection was made, it was of a different order of magnitude. And Jesus felt something flowing through him, would be the right way to say it. But was it that suddenly Jesus wanted to give to her as opposed to all the others who were clamoring to touch him? Or was that he was able to give to her? In other words, which side does the responsibility lie on? So there was a commotion about this, and then it turns out there's a woman, and they said that she'd been hemorrhaging for 12 years, I think it was. She knew about Jesus and obviously in some way had an inner ability to attune herself to him that was different than anyone else. And she went toward him, but she didn't even reach for his body. She touched the hem of his garment. These phrases over centuries become so powerful. The phrase, "the hem of his garment," is from that story. And that was enough. She wasn't even in touch with his physical body, but she was there with that consciousness, and everything changed. And in that instant, she was healed. And when there was such a commotion, the commotion created by Jesus, not by her. She was just one of the crowd. She wasn't there trying to make a magnificent scene out of herself. In fact, he was saying, "Who touched me? Who touched me?" And she was shrinking away from the notoriety. But finally she saw she had to say, it was I, Lord, who touched you. Now, I was reciting the prayer to the Masters when we walked out on the dais, which is, countless times. I couldn't even begin to think how many times since the beginning of my spiritual life on this path I've recited the names of the Masters. And because we have a pattern, we always do it the same way. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother. First we talk about the different vibrations of Master, which is the male and female, Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, which is actually God beyond creation, God within creation. That's the esoterica of what that means. Then we talk about friend, beloved. These are ways in which the devotee opens his heart to God, opens his heart to Mother, opens to Father, opens to friend, opens to beloved. All these words there. So we set the stage for that vibration, and then we bring that vibration into specific form. Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Sri Yukteswar, Paramhansa Yogananda. I'm smiling suddenly because I'm remembering many years ago I presided at a wedding, and the couple were devoted to Ananda, but none of their family were. And so we were having this discussion, as you sometimes have at wedding. It's a unique context, because the couple wants to be married according to this vibration, but their families are there and they don't want their families to be upset. And in this case, there were a lot of fundamentalist Christians and all of this. But they really wanted me to pray to all the Masters, and I said, don't worry. These are just going to be incomprehensible words to them. They'll recognize Jesus Christ, but after that, it'll just go because to us, Lahiri Mahashaya Paramhansa Yogananda Swami Sri Yukteswar, those all conjure up images, but it's not English. And you don't even know their names. This cultural like this. I said, they'll just think I've gone into Hebrew or Latin or something like that, which is in fact exactly what happened. And they totally loved the wedding because the rest of it was completely comprehensible. But when I was saying it this morning, and when I say it always, you just sort of start in Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, Friend, and then all of a sudden you realize what you're doing. Jesus Christ. Those are just two words, but what does that mean? Babaji Krishna. What are we talking about? We're talking about the light. We're talking about the infinite power of the divine that has manifested in human form for the salvation of mankind. A prayer of love went up from earth and you responded. A ray of your light flashed out from the heart of infinity, burst downward through night skies of consciousness, and was born on earth for the redemption of mankind in human form. We say that in the festival every week. You'll hear it in a few minutes. Was born on earth, listen, for the redemption of mankind in human form. Who is mankind? Well, we can talk mankind. I suppose these days you have to say person kind or whatever you say. But nonetheless, we can talk in this huge abstraction, but we're not redeemed all at once. We're redeemed one by one. And the slowness of our redemption is not because of the ray of light which flashed out from the heart of infinity. The slowness of our redemption is because the light shined in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. It's an extraordinary thing to really contemplate deeply within ourselves what is going to be different on the day of our enlightenment. Is it that Jesus and Babaji and Krishna and Lahiri Mahashaya and so on, are they going to increase their presence in this world? We can be grasping at the masters all the time, but the hem of the garment is enough if we within ourselves are ready to receive. And this is the long, chaotic, utterly confusing cycle of karma that I mean, there you are, you have Rajyasi. He's born into poverty, he's driven to become powerfully rich. He enjoyed his money. He built a mansion for himself, he had a private golf course, he had, you know, it wasn't like, he did not live austerely. He lived like a king. He lived like Rajyasi, on one hand. On the other hand, he was very frugal. Also, Master, there's another extraordinary, touching story about Master, I think, mending his suspenders, because Rajyasi was just so frugal that there was no, if he could, you know, if he could pin his suspenders together, why would he buy a new pair? And Master himself was mending them because he was so touched by the refinement of Rajyasi's devotion, because this material world was nothing but light to him. He could just see it in that way. But we all move through this world, and this world is so it's so good at fooling us. It's just so exceedingly good at fooling us. And all of these things are very confusing to me as to why it is this way, but it is this way. Master himself said he had an argument with Divine Mother. Why did Divine Mother have to teach her children through suffering? And then there's a funny piece of that. When Master in 1948, in August of 1948, just a month before Swami Kriyananda came to him, Master had a 3-day experience. He went into samadhi, which he could do at will at any time, into a state of cosmic consciousness, but he entered into that state for 3 days. The masters themselves also participate in the unpredictable, odd nature of this world. They have a script, is the only way you can think of it. It's really literally like being in a play. I've done a tiny bit of acting in plays when I was in school, and I know how that is. You put on a costume, you become somebody else. You walk onto the stage, and the whole time that you're on the stage, you're just somebody else. Because I had perhaps more imagination than some of the high school students when I was at that stage, because that's where I did most of what I did. I usually got to play the characters. I usually got to play the old women or the weird people, because I could move enough out of my own reality. The last play I was in, though, I said I wanted to be pretty. I was so tired of being ugly, because that was all the parts I got. So they let me be Gwendolyn in The Importance of Being Earnest. And I got a lavender dress, and I was very pretty, and it pleased me immensely. And so that was the part I got to play, which was honestly no more me than the old women were. But when you're in the costume, which is to say when you're in the body, and when you see, and how Master put it, Master said, when I take incarnation and I see the personality I have to assume, that's how he put it. He said, at first it's uncomfortable, like a heavy overcoat on a hot day. It's kind of itchy and confining. But then I get used to it, he said. So like, what are we dealing with? You know, this is again when I'm saying, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya. What are we dealing with? We have to be very, very careful never to lose our sense of awe. We don't ever want what we're doing to become, we don't want to become over-familiar, is the only word I can think of. And over-familiarity means we lose contact with what we're really doing. You know, every time we repeat the names of those masters, every time we sit down to meditate, every time we pick up our Kriya Mala, every time we look at a picture of one of these masters, we never want to lose our sense of awe. How did we be so lucky? I shamelessly say, I mean, without embarrassment, I say, I must have spent incarnations in extraordinary tapasya, just doing things that I can hardly imagine now, to have built up whatever it took enough. I don't think I can be healed by just touching the hem of the garment, but we can certainly cling. We can cling with everything we have, because that light is always shining in the darkness. And it is, if we do not comprehend it, it is not because the light is absent. And that simple thought, to hold that thought deeply within us, if I grieve or lose my way, now I forget the line, if I grieve or lose my way, only thou can comfort me. That's the chant that we were singing earlier that Swamiji wrote. If I grieve or lose my way, only thou can comfort me. Now, there's so many places in Master's writing and Swami's writing and Swami's music and Master's whispers from eternity. There's so many places, and you hear and you think, that's all I need. If I could just understand that. If I could just understand that. There's this story, I don't know if it's apocryphal or true, but there were 3 hermits who lived in solitude on an island, and their holiness, the rumor of their holiness, reached the ears of the priest or the bishop, whoever he was, and they were unorthodox in the way they were doing things. So the bishop wanted to make sure that they were conforming to church dogma. So he had to get in a boat, and he went across on the boat, and then these 3 simple hermits, they were thrilled to have the bishop there, and the bishop taught them the proper prayers, because the only prayer they said was, thou art 3, we are 3. That was their prayer, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, because they were Catholic monks. Thou art 3, we are 3. And so the priest taught them how they should do things exactly, and they studiously listened. Bishop or priest got back on the boat. He was very proud of what he'd done. He was sailing away. And they're some distance from the island, and he turns. He sees the 3 monks, and they're holding hands, and they're running across the water to the boat. Oh, holy bishop, we've already forgotten your prayers. Can you teach them to us again? And I think the bishop had the sense to say, I don't think you need them. Thou art 3, we are 3. Thou took human form, the light descended. A call of longing went up from earth. Lord, when in darkness, Lord, in confusion, always I'll follow thee. And just know in myself, know in yourself always, just remove my darkness, Lord. Help me to know that you are always with me. If we think, let me say how to say it. We all have moments when we know. We just know. It's not out of books. We just know. Just somebody asked me the other day, sort of, how's your day been? I said, I woke up happy. And I thought to myself later, isn't that wonderful? I just said it because that was how I felt. I woke up happy. I came out of subconsciousness happy. Do you remember being little children? I had a very happy childhood. You just wake up happy. What do you need? There you are. Here I am. It's just, we are 3, thou art 3, It's just, everything is enough. I woke up happy. At some point, all of us have woken up happy at least once. What was different? Oh, we might have been able to say this, or this, or this, but it was the light shone in the darkness, and I comprehended it. I didn't lose track of it. There it really was. And this is where, as Robert was reading for us today, Master was with this great saint who lived in the world of light. And because Master was able to comprehend the light when he was touching the hem of the garment of that great saint. Now Master is playing his role. This is the personality Master had to put on. He had to be this young man. He was actually running away from his guru in that story. He decided he would go to the Himalayas because his master wasn't enough for him. In fact, Ram Gopal sent him back to Sri Yukteswar. But still, this was the part Master had to play because he had to set an example for us. Otherwise, we don't know how to live in this world. If the Master just drops in and always comprehends the light, then what kind of an example is that for us? So the Master scriptwriter writes this play, gives Rajyasi a mentally unbalanced wife, causes him to be Master's successor, but he has to keep it a secret. As I understood it from reading some things about Rajyasi's life, he meditated in his office, and he had a little cabinet there where he had the Master's pictures that he could open up. Why? And you sort of stop for a minute. Why did he meditate in his office? And then you realize because he couldn't meditate at all. Because his wife was not merely antagonistic, she was unbalanced. So there was just nothing, nothing, no. And this is the part he had to play. And Master had to play a part too. And actually, we're playing parts, except we've forgotten that we're actors. That's the problem. Now, the best actors forget that they're acting, but the part that we're playing is not as much fun. Let's just put it that way. Because that light shines on us and we forget. In the Path, Swami writes of a time when Master was recording an album of chanting, of himself chanting, and afterwards the ashram there in Los Angeles is at the top of a high hill, and when you stood on the hillside at night, you could see the lights of the city, and of course it was very beautiful. Master sometimes commented how many unbeautiful things were being illuminated by those lights if you'd been down on the ground level. But from here, all you would see was the beautiful lights. So Swami talks about how they were outside, and I guess playing through a loudspeaker, they were listening to the chants that Master had just recorded. I think of the scene. Swami writes about it so vividly, and you can see and you can feel how, what an experience that would be, to be out in the warm night, looking at the lights of the city, listening to Master's chanting, standing next to him. Fortunately, you see, time and space is an illusion. So if it ever happened, it's happening. It's just, we have to just move away from where we think we are and move to where we always are. But Master was there in that environment, and he looked at the monks and he said, "Oh, if you could see yourselves as I see you, you would see, in essence, that you don't exist at all, that you're nothing but light, beautiful light. It's just that. But the light shone in the darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not." Let us break that ignorance. Let us break free. Let us cling to the hem of the garment. Every time we see the pictures of the Masters, every time we hear or say their names, or just pick one little tiny part and just hold on to it. Just hold on to it for as long and as tight as you can, so that we can wake up happy. And not just wake up from physical sleep into the happiness of another day, but that we can wake up into the fact that the light is always there. What an extraordinary divine promise. God bless you.
There's joy in the heavens, a smile on the mountains, and melody sings everywhere. The flowers are all laughing to welcome the morning. Your soul is as free as the air. The flowers are all laughing to welcome the morning. Your soul is as free as the air. Leave home in the sunshine, dance through a meadow, or sit by a stream and just be. The lilt of the water will gather your worries and carry them down to the sea. The lilt of the water will gather your worries and carry them down to the sea. Men hunger for freedom, but don't see their dungeon is only the thought that they're bound. Desires are their shackles, the hope that tomorrow the doorway to joy will be found. Desires are their shackles, the hope that tomorrow the doorway to joy will be found. There's joy all around us, why wait till tomorrow? We've only this moment to live. A heaven within us is ours for the finding, a freedom no riches can give. A heaven within us is ours for the finding, a freedom no riches can give. There's joy in the heavens, a smile on the mountains, and melody sings everywhere. The flowers are all laughing to welcome the morning. Your soul is as free as the air. The flowers are all laughing to welcome the morning. Your soul is as free as the air. The flowers are all laughing to welcome the morning. Your soul is as free as the air.
Following the theme that both Robert and Asha have been laying out for us, Swamiji had written a song, a humorous song, poking fun at so many of the times in life where we forget to perceive the light, to comprehend the light in the darkness. Brother, I've a faint suspicion you and I've been led astray, taught to drive the devil from us. We've invited him to stay. What we need is light, for we can't drive out the darkness with a stick. With a stick, no, we can't drive out the devil with a stick. Some proclaim all men are sinners, can't escape the devil's might. How their interest must intrigue him, they won't let him out of sight. What we need is light, for we can't drive out the darkness. Talking sin, no, we can't drive out the devil talking sin. Some of us were taught the slogan, social evils must be slain. But can anger drive out sorrow? How can passion conquer pain? What we need is light, for we can't drive out the darkness while we hate. While we hate, no, we can't drive out the devil while we hate. Brother, have you ever wondered why the darkness lingers on? If we want to see the sunrise, let us turn and face the dawn. What we need is light, for we'll only best the darkness when we love, yes, we'll only best the devil when we love.